Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about Come On, Feel the Noise. The story, how rock became metal. Um, so this here pretty much starts off with, pretty much in the late 60s, to like early 70s, around the time it started. Around the early days of metal. So pretty much it talked about like Deep Purple. When they had this, around the early days of of Deep Purple, when they had like Smoke on the Water, songs like that, and then it goes into Led Zeppelin. Talking about Led Zeppelin, which Led Zeppelin, I really wouldn't consider Led Zeppelin, me myself, heavy metal. Really consider Led Zeppelin rock, not really metal. But they were in this documentary here, definitely like Kiss, I believe Kiss might have been. And then it talked about through the 70s, and then it came to around the 80s when actually even before that I should say, got into kind of like glam rock, with bands like Sweet, which had the song Ballroom Blitz, songs like that. Then it got into Slade, which had this song, which they had it out before Quiet Riot did, called Come On, Feel the Noise, which Quiet Riot, I believe, released that around 1972, I want to say 72, either 72, 73. And then later on it got into like, actually before that I should say MC5 were also in it. So they were quite, because they came on the scene around the late 60s, 69 when their first album came out, and they were quite heavy. And then it got into the 80s, which had like bands like Twisted Sister, which came around the early 80s, I think like around 82 their first album came out. And then bands like other bands like Motley Crue, and I'm trying to think of other names, Metallica, Motorhead, and then it kind of got into around, I would say around the 80s. So I knew a lot of the stuff from the late 60s until the 80s, and then it got into other genres of metal over the years, which in the 90s and today's stuff, which I really don't know of today's music. I'm not really quite sure when it comes to that rock. But yeah, it was great. And then they were talking, like Whitesnake as well, I believe. In the 80s, they were talking about that. So a lot of bands I knew up until then. It was quite interesting about how it starts off with the early days of how it all pretty much started. And I think, like, very, very interesting I found it was. Definitely, if you're a fan of this kind of music, and then, like you said, they had other bands like Metallica, but yeah, it was very, very interesting about the history of metal. But like I said, it all goes all the way to the say around the late 60s, because they were talking about bands about like Steppenwolf, which you know, I found it was quite interesting. So yeah, like I said, it starts all the way back to the 60s and then goes through the 70s, and then the 80s, and then 90s, and then whatever today's, like the 90s, however, whatever that is, and then the 2000s. But I found it was very interesting. Definitely for sure. Here's the back of it. Very interesting. So let me know down in the comments, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and let me know, and make sure to hit that thumbs up, and thanks so much for all of you supporting this channel. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments, and bye.